Hello and welcome to my channel. I will keep this introduction brief, but since this is my very first video for the channel, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is C Nash, and welcome to what will be the first in many videos on subjects and topics that I find interesting, and hopefully you do as well. In this video, I will discuss the general public's misunderstanding of evolution and natural selection. I've noticed a large amount of people in my personal life and online who misunderstand and misuse biological concepts that are then spread to others who believe that these ideas are complete and even factual when it is either incomplete or even entirely wrong. This video is not an exhaustive list, nor am I a complete expert on the topic, but I hope to leave you with a better understanding of what natural selection is, and in a larger sense, its role in evolution, and how to better spot misinformation in public scientific understanding. There are two main misconceptions I would like to highlight in this video, as well as providing deeper context and understanding in what natural selection actually is.
He's strong. He'll survive.
Only the strong will survive.
Only the strong survive. Only the strong survive.
The strong survive.
First, to understand natural selection, we must understand what evolution is and its process. Evolution is the process through which life interacts with and adapts to its environment. The mechanism through which this occurs is straightforward, but also very important. A species encounters hardship, some die, some survive, and those that survive will pass on their traits to their offspring. Many people misconstrue what survival really means. This might not seem as important, however, it is the biggest misconception about natural selection that I see on a regular basis, and that is the difference between strength and survival of the fittest. When you hear fitness, you may think of large predators like lions, wolves, tigers, and other animals who prey on smaller, weaker animals. Or maybe you think of a physically fit individual that works out a lot and has a lot of muscle. As with large predators, this is not an entirely accurate picture when discussing fitness, as even using the commonly held definition of fitness to describe influencers or muscular people does not necessarily give an accurate picture to their overall physical health, but that's a discussion for another video. Yet, both paint an incomplete picture when talking about fitness and survival. So then what is fitness then? The main point I want to focus on, and the main takeaway when discussing natural selection, is offspring. Fitness and survival does not necessarily mean having strength or size specifically. These are merely phenotypes or traits that may or may not assist in the process of evolution and passing on one's traits to survive. We can see this with a relational graph between predator and prey. In most cases, not all, we see that prey has a much easier time and faster offspring production rate, and this graph is a very common trend among predator-prey relationships in the wild. But as can be seen, if a predator is too successful at hunting their prey, this may lead to food scarcity, and no amount of strength will stop them from starving. Another good example of this is with bird species. Many species of bird have vibrant, colorful feathers and produce distinct sounds and songs that function in attracting mates. This makes sense following our definition of fitness, as it does not matter if they are the greatest hunter if they cannot find a mate. This does come at a cost, as all traits and behaviors do, however. These feathers and songs also attract predators that can easily identify and track these birds due to their lack of camouflage, but the pros of finding the mate and producing offspring outweigh the risks of being eaten by larger predators. If only strength and speed matters, then how would these types of birds have survived for so long? Once again, fitness means production of offspring, not how much strength they have. So then, what is a good trait? If not strength or speed, then how do we determine what a good trait is? The answer is in the context. When determining how a trait affects fitness, we need to understand a key relationship between species and their environment. Now, as mentioned before, fitness is merely the ability for any species to produce offspring. Viable offspring, which just means fertile. If offspring are not produced, or are unable to be produced, then fitness is zero. Now, generally speaking, this is not really the case, unless the species has gone extinct, and normally when we discuss fitness, it is in relation to populations and cohorts, not just a single individual. But it does give a clear picture on why there is so many misunderstandings around the topic of natural selection and survival. But to give a more direct answer, the context on what a good, bad, or neutral trait is the environment. While survival of the fittest is the direct process through which survival occurs, the environment is what selects and shapes the traits and behaviors that get passed on through selective pressures. These pressures can be the physical environment, access to food and water, predators, competition, weather, among many others. How a species reacts to and adapts to their environment is the entire basis of the relationship between life and the physical world. I can't end the video without talking about human evolution. Whenever evolution comes up in public discussion, it is almost always focused on the human side of genetics. While it might seem straightforward to some that humanity follows the same rules and principles that other species follow, there are those that do not fully grasp these concepts or cherry pick them in a way that does not provide a factual picture of human natural selection and evolution. I believe that understanding these two concepts, fitness and the environment, and the relationship and the process of evolution and natural selection, gives a more complete understanding as to why and how species evolve and react to their surroundings. So, to reiterate, humans, while not part of a strictly natural environment per se in the modern world, we most certainly evolved in one. All those same pressures and predators shaped humanity's genetic path and led to the lives of modern humans today. The misconception that humanity now is smarter or more intelligent than our early ancestors is not true. While we have created highly advanced societies, languages, cultures, and technologies, there is no major difference in the adaptation or evolution in cognitive function of humans today. This is also the case whenever individuals bring up strength in relation to survival of the fittest. Every adaptation that exists today existed in the past. That is not to say that our lives are the same or that the environmental pressures are the same. It's just that the human evolution is slow. Like really, really slow. It took millions of years for the genetic split between humans and apes, and that split amounts to about a 2% genetic distinction. And yes, there are certainly different mutations that have occurred since then, and while there are significant differences between humanity now and prehistory humanity, the genetic similarities are almost identical. Another important note is that once again, the traits that people bring up when discussing themselves or others are contextual. Remember, when discussing evolution, we are talking about a cohort or species as a whole, not individuals. Populations evolve, not singular members of a species. Even saying this, it is a difficult task to accomplish trying to find what trait is better, worse, as it is almost impossible to discuss with any precision which human phenotypes are better or worse, especially in such a rapidly changing environment like modern society today. I will finish this video with the idea that evolution, while simple in its definition, leads to very messy and convoluted systems of organisms and ecosystems that may or may not follow the most rational design. Again, while evolution is responsible for everything life is, it does not have any goals, a plan, and is blindly stumbling into the future, and humans, along with all other species, are merely along for the ride. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. While I feel I explained the basics of evolution and natural selection, there are many concepts that just could not fit in this video alone. This includes adaptation during an individual's lifespan, called epigenetics, no, not eugenics, energy expenditure, intelligence as a trait, and why it is not the end goal of evolution, among many others that are just as important in these discussions. In the next video, I plan on discussing intelligence as a trait and why there are not more human level intelligences in nature. Thanks again, and I will see you in the next video.